Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, BADBABY. And tonight we have with us Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And Dr. Richard is a in-depth knowledge of experience in physicists and metaphysicists. He was also a trainer for the Navy SEALs back in the 60s. And tonight we are going to go over a plethora of topics. I want to ask him about CERN. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame and also about what's happening with our sun right now. And so I want to welcome you to the show, Dr. Richard. How
Hi
are
there.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
We were talking about Robert. And you were saying that you wanted to do a comic book. I find that interesting because years ago, when I was doing shows with Chris from Fight for Our Freedom Fighters for America, someone contacted us from Europe and asked for our permission because he goes as independent. So there is a comic book out there somewhere with Independence and BADBABY in it.
I just did a workup on a manga-styled comic book for children on structured water. I worked with Jerry Pollack in 1970, and his concepts of exclusion zone water right now are essential, and some new directions in physics. And what I wanted to do is educate kids.
Excellent.
Well, that's comic book. That's how I got there. You know, I collected comics. You know, and I.
Wow.
What I like about comics is that if it's good writing, you know, like my favorite one was Warlock and Doctor Strange. I didn't get into the Avengers so much. That was for younger kids. I was into Doc Savage, that kind of thing. And the writing was excellent. And then when they would come in with an exceptional artist like Jim Starlin, the images would come alive and give me an image in my mind's eye of how a multiverse might be, where Doctor Strange was sliding through universes battling some giant slug, Dormammu or something like that.
Wow. Well, I think that's an excellent way to reach children, too, through comic books,
Well, and the thing is, if it's done in storyboard fashion, so that, like Capillary Action, the first comic, I did a workup for 12 comics on, around Water Girl's basic friends, and she is discovering the structure of water. Like, how can she get to the top of that tree over there? And do it with capillary action. And then I would explain, I go through a little scenario where she is using physics to get to the top of the tree as part of her personal development, going from becoming a little girl into a young woman. And it's just, for kids, trying to give them concepts of how water is quite different than what we think when we look at it in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where do you want to go with it? I mean, I'm not going to give you the story, but they go on a quest, da-da-da. There's the usual bad. You've got to have secondary foils. I took a screenwriting course from Bernard Shercliffe back in the 70s when he became my book manager. And what happened next is I did a workup for Fox, and they liked it. And they started it, and it was later called X-Files. And I then, just last year, took a course online on how to write comics. And I'm going to go ahead and try. It's kind of like, building a hot jalopy or a hot rod. And I want to, it's just, screwing around with, get a little bit of education and then try it out, see what I can do with it.
That's excellent. Well, I think you'll go. I think it'll be a hit. Keep
Yeah,
you
I'll
know.
be in the poorhouse. I need to. I need to get this resolved because I'm seemingly it looks like there are tons of people selling my books that did not come from me. How do they do that? I'd like people to know that if they want to buy any of my books, you get them directly from me off my website, and everything is autographed. And that's how you know you got it from me, is it'll have my signature inside it.
Wow. Isn't that awful? I think
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Well, the terrible part was where I went from being able to buy my home to now I'm on food stamps and I'm a renter. Starving artist comes to mind.
Been there, did that. I'm in the same boat. What do you want to do? You want to row or you want to steer?
Well, you hum a few bars, we'll fake it. How's that sound?
Okay.
Something out of Nashville. My dog dying and my books didn't sell. There it is.
I always say I'm going to get my reward in heaven, so.
Yeah, good luck with that, man. That's where God comes up with, no.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, the concept of heaven and hell is strictly Christianity. And basically, many religions have different kinds of what happens after life and death. And I've been writing about that because I spent a couple of weeks in the jungles with Ibn Alexander, and I actually studied with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I find it interesting, the distinction between life and death is kind of like a drop of water hitting a pool of water, like a cavitation process. And the two are related to each other as a hourglass going from into the out of.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're.
Well, okay. Now that we're on to religion, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since we're talking about hell,
Earth, underground.
The Notre Dame Cathedral fire. There is so much controversy how that church caught on fire. I happened to see your posting on Facebook today with the flash there, where they slowed it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very suspicious. And,
the problem
I want your thoughts.
We'll never know what happened. They're so convoluted in the media now that almost any explanation is yes. That, like in Las Vegas, when the shooter, it was a gun running operation that went bad, but then some other people got a helicopter and increased the body count, and by the end of the day, who knows what all happened.
I know. I find it very suspicious that, 4 days before this fire, too, they airlifted these statues out of there for restoration. And then the other thing is, did you know that that in the video I Pet Goat, it shows that cathedral going down?
I thought it was just God getting upset and tired of that humpbacks and Notre Dame stuff. He decided he's going to end that nonsense.
Well, it also could have, we can draw in hell now because, that's the Catholic Church, and they worship Satan, so, maybe God's getting a little pissed off.
I'm not going to buy into that one. I'll tell you what I do know. Man is a person that polarizes everything. My understanding of God, my limited understanding, he's not in conflict with anything. And he's not at war with anything. He runs everything. And that man looks at him and can't see the other side, like your shadow being projected on the ground. It's a part of you. It is a darker part of you. There it is. It's dark. Shadow. And that's what they call in Jungian psychology. Now, is God good or evil? He's both. He's everything. It's man that cannot see the other side and makes assumptions. Like a fence. Is that fence brown or green? And the correct answer is yes. In fact, you can, with simple physics, prove almost anything you want, including that the Earth is flat. You know, we start in physics with assumed truths and then definitions. And one assumed truth is that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Now, is that true? Well, no. Today, we have examples where you can tunnel in event horizons in crystal, where you have a precursor wave that tells you of an event before it actually happens. And so the space is curved, and if that's true, I've got mathematics that will show that the Earth's flat. In fact, the correct answer is it's all shapes, and you choose which one predicated on what solutions and realities you want to have access to. So one of the reasons why I would say a Buddhist can be a Christian, but a Christian cannot be a Buddhist. It has to do with worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
So, well, you know, I mean, I think every religion has its good points and its bad points, and I think every person has good and bad in them. It's a matter of what you want to embellish the most, you know. If you want to be a bad person.
That's why you had choice. That's what made you God's favorite.
Oh, am I his favorite? I like being his favorite. You know, and I maybe, you know, I mean, when we all start out younger, we all have our wild days. Maybe that's our bad side, and finally we decide whether we're going to stay bad or let the good take over. Thank God.
What you're talking about are values, moral codes of ethics, rules of conduct, and they differ for each of us. And what you do in a church is you select a church whose values offer fellowship to you and help you reinforce those values. So you seek out a religion that stresses not telling a lie or that kind of thing to help you become a better this or that. But I'm going to guess there's as many religions as there are human beings. Everybody's just a little bit different in terms of what they want to do and how they want to conduct themselves. And I don't think that one size fits all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's happening to our planet this weekend. Are you familiar that we are going to have a solar storm that's going to be hitting the planet the next few days?
The solar minimums that have been happening are creepy because the sun is like a bullet going through deep space, and the Earth isn't circling the sun. The Earth is in a helix trying to catch up with it. And most of the sun is hitting whatever crap is in that it's going through will be absorbed by the sun, unless it's in a solar minimum, in which case it goes around the sun and hits the Earth. And we've been in a period of solar minimum where the sun is now going through a region of deep space full of dark matter. What is dark matter? Nobody really knows. Again, it's a definition that allows us to have certain kinds of solutions on what a black hole is and or what would happen if you entered a black hole. Nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
It's all guessing. Further, you do some experiments and you have inconsistencies. And that's one of the reasons why I think that there's not going to be a general theory of everything, TOTO, at some point, because imagination is reality, and I believe that there are multiverses of universes where the laws are different for each of us. This is, I think, the new direction in advanced physics is the field of magic, the art changing consciousness at will.
So, do you think that the severe weather that we're having over the past few days has anything to do with the solar storms that are coming?
Probably. I don't. There's always interconnectivity. We have theories on it. The planet Uranus, in a system called cosmobiology, when it's in a certain geometric alignment with the Earth and the Sun, a major earthquake occurs. But there's no known laws in the universe that would account for how the position of Neptune could have any effect on Earth at all, just like the storms on Jupiter or the lunar cycle of the moon.
Mm-hmm. We've been having such mega tornadoes. In fact, just before we logged into the show tonight, one of my friends on Facebook said there was a tornado coming where they live in, I think it was in Georgia or North Carolina. But yeah, they're really getting hit with the tornadoes over there on the East Coast, the southern East Coast. And my heart goes out to the people that are going through all this devastation. It seems like they can't catch a break. Same with Texas. Texas doesn't seem like they can catch a break either.
There's going to be a serious problem because of the weather in terms of what it's done in Nebraska and the crops. And I think you're going to see by July some crops aren't available and or inordinate prices because, there's no storages. Nebraska lost all of last year's storable commodities. Now they may not even be able to grow this year. That would be 2 years in a row just because of this weather.
Yeah. And they've lost a lot of livestock too. The flooding had killed a lot of the animals. And, I keep telling everybody we're going to see that impact in a few months in the store, don't you think, Dr. Rick?
I think we're already seeing it. I mean, in terms of Nebraska, they've called a national emergency, and livestock. Yeah, I just don't know how it's all going to play out. I just don't know.
Well, I've been saying for last few years that food is going to be like gold, and it seems to like that's all playing out, unfortunately. And I just, my heart goes out to all the farmers that are losing their farms, and it doesn't seem like they're going to get a whole lot of help. No one's saying anything about the government help bailing these farmers out. And from what I had just seen a documentary on a farmer in Wisconsin was auctioning off all of his equipment because he said this is the third year that he had to remortgage just to feed his animals, and he can't keep going if he doesn't sell out now. He wouldn't even walk away with 20 grand to buy a house. And at the end of this documentary, it said 2/3 of Wisconsin's dairy farms have all given up. Where do we get our milk when all the farmers are gone? Where do we get our food when all the farmers are gone? I think people just don't understand the impact that's going to be hitting us. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's one of my primary areas of expertise is agriculture. And I can tell you that the United States and its trade deficits, that I wrote 20 years ago, I was trying to change the national debt by exporting non-storable commodities. That means crops that you would grow and they would service the world needs for that year, and you would never have surpluses or shortages. You just harvested like ginseng. I mean, how much ginseng is used in comparison? And so I made a distinction between storable commodities and non-storable commodities. And basically, non-storable commodities, the United States has forests and or crop excesses, acorns, for example. What we're doing down in Northern California, we put a tarp down under the tree and hit it with a D6, drop the acorns, and we ship those by rail into Korea because that was a big market They eat a lot of acorns, and we have a lot of oak here. But it's, you don't use that in your diet. You use other kinds of nuts like hazelnuts and other things like that. I'm disappointed to say that people are not interested in growing their own gardens. Chattanooga right now produces 40% of the food consumed in that city. For example, every single restaurant in Chattanooga has a greenhouse. That means at least part of the salad bar is produced right on spot, off season.
Mm-hmm.
That is, that is a place that I would like to see more discussion. And New Jersey, all these top skyscrapers. On the top of the skyscraper is very top where they put the greenhouse that feeds the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that I always thought that they should do in the schools is get the children more involved in growing gardens. I mean, why not just plow up some of the playground area or the fields that they have around there and have the children grow food and then take it to the homeless shelters? I mean,
well, they're doing that everywhere now. If you go into Chattanooga, for example, Martin Luther King Center, they've turned the entire parking lot into gardens, and you can look off to Atlanta. I was there one time, and this old man, I'm old, I'm 75, he was way older, stood there, came over and stood next to me looking out at Atlanta, and I reached down and grabbed something off the ground and put it in my mouth, and his eyes opened wide when he came to realize that there was food right in front of him. Now, most people don't have a sense of where food comes from, like milk from a cow. And it is to actually have to do the labor of feeding the cow and milking the cow and then processing the milk so that you can drink it. That is kind of like empowering. And children, right out of the gate, are born natural gardeners. They like that playground, sandbox, right out of the gate. What is needed is like a facilitator, and that's where man, as we get older, should probably facilitate the children because they're well better suited for doing seedlings and things like that. There's systems in Russia called Anastasia, others like that, where the children are mentored into a life process that becomes a daily routine, like you would do a walk in the day.
Yeah, I saw that in Detroit. I saw that they're doing a lot of block lots that the people on the block would all get in together and grow food. But that was a few years ago. I saw them doing that. I don't know if they're still doing it.
Oh,
I hope they are.
And there's you go into L.A. They call it gangster urban farming. This panhandler is in the middle of traffic on a median divider and panhandling, and one day he plowed up the earth and started growing a lettuce right there in the median and producing, instead of panhandling, he's now selling lettuce to people when they're driving by. And L.A. approved it because the man became empowered rather than being a panhandler and beggar. He now is growing food to make a living selling to by passerbys. The concept is starting with children, because I think, I'm doing a workbook 3 with Power Tools, and what that is I've taken a thing called the Caterpillar. It's a bus, Pacifica Gardens in Williams, Oregon, that is run by third graders on entomology, teaching the children about the monarch butterfly and its migratory movement, into Mexico and so on. Well, I am stripping that out of the bus, and rather than deal with a monarch butterfly, I'm putting in a water testing laboratory that would go to the grade schools, teaching first graders how to determine the turbidity and pH of water so it's drinkable. And then that first grader goes home and teaches his parent how to determine whether the water is safe to drink. Do you understand the importance of this? The idea.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, water.
You know, if the kids in Flint would have known that, they wouldn't have been getting poisoned, would they have?
See, if we have any kind of natural disaster, the first two things that happen before zombies appear, before radiation sickness and pandemics, the first two things that happen is dehydration and exhaustion. Nobody's prepared, and it will always be water where the first deaths occur.
Now, okay, let's say we do have a natural disaster. What about people who have wells? Are they better off than people that are getting water from the city? And, you know, I know a well isn't going to work without the electricity, but okay, so say there is no electricity and we have a well. How would we extract our water from our well? Is there a way to do it without?
You mean when the grid down and you don't have electricity?
Yes.
You put a bicycle over it. Pump it out with your bicycle.
Ah, like a generator type deal.
You put a sling on it, and you put a pump on it so that you can hand pump it out using some sort of device, which, you know, it could be your bicycle.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's now, like I asked, we would be better off with getting the water from the well than trying to, you know, get city water. Am I correct?
Well, there's lots of different habitats. Each one is different in terms of what it offers for advantages and disadvantages. In desert, all your cacti have water inside them, which means you cut them open and you can find water in the plant itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, everything's a little different, and each habitat brings with it advantages and disadvantages. And that's one of the reasons why I personally do not think, again, one size fits all like Anastasia, these little communities that are self-sufficient and independent of each other. I think all of it is defined by, you know, what your surroundings are about.
Right. Well, you know, and then there's areas that they've done testing with bombs, and you know, and there's areas that are dumping waste, you know, so you just got to know what's going on in your area.
Okay, in Arizona or Colorado, I have a missile silo, an old abandoned missile silo that's 60 feet long and run by 12 families doing a vertical aquaculture system where the water, as it falls down to the next set, is heated up, and that determines which crops on. And you go up into Sandpoint, Idaho, where the Pack River is, and now you have bass fishing on the Lake Pend Oreille. Every habitat is different, and one of the reasons why Gurdjieff said that you should eat your environment. If you live on the coast, you're mostly climatized for fish and that kind of a dietary thing, whereas if you live in the plains of Nebraska, it would be grasses and grains.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, not to do a quick change, but I need to ask you about 5G tonight.
Yeah, you need to ask me what?
About 5G. Let's talk.
Are we talking about $5,000 or 5 gigahertz? Probably
we're talking
5 gigahertz.
About.
I'm messing with you. I'm just
Yeah. Well, I wish I had $5,000 right now.
Well, then that's 5G. You know, it's slang. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 5G. Yeah, last time we spoke, we were just getting into it about it being a weapon. And, you know, I've done a little bit more research. I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about it. I imagine you would probably know that when they use this in the military, it actually cooked people's eyeballs. Is this true?
Well, there's dosimetry with 5 gigahertz. It's toxic. And that's one of the reasons we live down in the bottom of Earth with the atmosphere filtering out this microwave band radiation that has dosimetry, LD50 ratios. Paradise was set up by smart meters. The so-called blue laser lights, the particle beam was not. What it was a smart meter going critical and setting off the next smart meter. 10,000 homes went down. And then, now they're regulating in smaller towns like Kutati, where it's absolutely illegal. They ban it. And now we've got countries like the Netherlands beginning to ban it. And I think what we're going to say is that at some point, there's going to be a war on trying to force 5G on us because it's all about money. Lockheed got the space fence, Earth fence is what it's called. They're going to make the Earth look like a pincushion with all these satellites up there beaming down 5 gigahertz for just-in-time charge on the fly. And I don't think it's very healthy. I think we're going to have a serious problem.
Yeah, and the thing is, they aren't letting people know just what kind of things will happen when this all gets into place. You know, they're running it right now up here in the town off of the edge of Lake Huron and Port Huron. They're putting in the cables and they're setting up all the antennas. And as soon as I start driving around in there, man, do I feel crappy. You know, and
some of that's psychological. You won't feel it like prickling on your skin as much as it would be from imagination. But that's not necessarily true. My girlfriend is an empath and can feel things literally.
Yeah.
Now, is she feeling them, or is that how her consciousness associates the access to that information? There is where the problem is. See, our senses are not sensors. They're filters. And when we bring information into consciousness, we have essentially filtered it. And so it's been contaminated. It's not real. It is a partial of the truth, but it is not the whole picture. With 5G, there's parts in the body. There's a guy named Dr. Beal, B-E-A-L, out of Florida, that has done a bunch of dosimetry studies on these radiation bandwidths. And it's affecting our bumblebee. It's affecting the ant.
Right.
It's affecting the fly.
See, that's what I heard. I heard that it's actually going to kill off the bees. It's going to sterilize the animals. It is
has done, yeah. What the study I saw, what it does to bees is it confuses them, and they can't navigate, which is what they do. They use electromagnetic fields to find the flower and home and other kinds of points of destination. And when they get in the field of a 5 gigahertz, they're totally confused. I have a friend up in Seattle that is coating his beehives with shungite to protect them in the hive itself. And guess what? His honey is different in chemistry.
Wow.
And that's just because the bee is affected by this 5G.
Right.
My phones, the phone I use, a landline I have, is early 1 and 2G technology, and it doesn't have the higher bandwidth frequencies that make speaking in it clearer. So I constantly going, what, who? Because I can't hear the lower bandwidth frequencies, which is what older technology does when it interfaces with 5G technology. It's and the whole thing is about marketing. It means I have to go out and buy a new phone.
Yeah, money.
Well, there it is. Changes everything.
Well, and the other thing is, with the what I read was that the nanoparticles that are in our bodies that we have ingested through being sprayed on are going to be a locator for the 5G, so they can triangulate anybody
Well, that's
in their
speculation.
home.
Yeah. Hold on.
That's speculation.
That is, I don't know if that's true or not. What I will say is Hollywood, if she could, you can presume that any technology we're going to do from nuclear radiation on down is going to have a good side and the dark side, Luke. You can count on it. And the first place it's going to be used, well, of course it's going to be used as a weapon. So nuclear energy is something that, well, we shouldn't do it until we have waste management and how to get rid of nuclear waste. Oh, don't worry. We'll figure it out by the time we need it. Guess what? They didn't. And now we've got a problem.
Yeah. And then there's the old, don't tell anybody, we'll just dump it over here.
Well, the Columbia River is contaminated now from Hanford. It's leaking into the Columbia, and it's toxic. And Fukushima, I'm not even going to go what it's doing to the Pacific coast.
Yeah,
terrible.
And they aren't telling anybody, and people are still going swimming in that ocean and taking their kids to the beach.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows just how serious it is. It's serious. We got a serious problem, and what does it mean? Well, I don't know. And if you don't know, why scare everybody?
Right, but just as much as the public has been told, I would be smart enough not to take my kid there until I know for sure, wouldn't you?
Well, but here's the problem. The New Madrid fault line has 21 Daiichi-like reactors, and they're all leaking now. And if we have a grid down situation, that zone is going to be no man's land. It takes, to shut down a nuclear power plant, you just don't turn the switch off and it turns off. It takes like a year to bring it down slowly. If you have a grid down situation, Indian Point right now is leaking in Hudson. You can go down into Florida. They're leaking there as well. The whole thing is a scary proposition in terms of, what are you going to do? How are we going to clean it up?
You got potential Fukushimas everywhere.
That's correct. And that's why my partner Matt Stein, wrote a paper called 400 Chernobyls. There are more than 400 nuclear power plants right now. They're all old. There's no way to to turn them off quickly. And if we have a grid down situation, right out of the gate, we're going to have a serious problem with nuclear radiation with no plan on it. Where are we going to put it?
Oh. Well, I'd say, Houston, we got a problem.
The technologies always come with a price. And nothing is for free. Well, that's not true. The tides. Oregon has developed a buoy that goes up and down with the tides, creates power. If you put that buoy up in Nova Scotia, where the daily tides change 60 feet, that's enough movement to empower the entire eastern seaboard. I have to question why. And now the military is requesting budgets to have a portable power plant, nuclear power plant for war.
Jesus. Well, it almost seems like they want humanity to suffer.
It isn't want or not. It's greed or maybe we've been invaded by something. I don't know. It seems like we're being terraformed right in front of our eyes, made into. Yeah.
You know,
I don't know.
I always have this theory that the world leaders are working with the aliens and that they want to take over the planet.
I'm not sure what an alien is. You know, the black goo. That is
black goo.
that is what survived at Chernobyl, the black flame mold. And so that is what survived and flourished at Chernobyl. I don't know, but I can tell you this. Merlin said it to Arthur when he said, anything not specifically forbidden is mandatory. If this is possible, you can count on it. And that means, is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? A quick answer, yeah. It's all of it. You can count on it. So I don't mean to be a doom and gloomer, just heads up.
You know, we're fortunate enough where we lived our life. You know, the bad part are the children. You know, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with what's to come. That's what worries me.
Well, then that's why I feel it's in time that you mentor the children in a mentorship kind of program, because they're smarter than we are. And while they're not as experienced as we are, that's where we become the facilitators.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it seems like they're not giving the children a chance by, they're vaccinating them before their brains even develop and making them ill.
Vaccination, isn't that an interesting thing? You know, they talk about measles and mumps and the outbreak and, the things that are happening. Oh, there are 13 cases of mumps, da-da-da-da-da. Well, when I was a kid, we sought that out so I could get exposed to it and build up antibodies. The whole concept of immunization today is quite different in allotropic medicine than it used to be. And while it may be in some ways better, I have to seriously question what's in the carrier bases of some of these vaccines that they do, because when you do analysis, it's got creepy things in it. Mercury.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, why? I don't know.
Yeah, and what's scary is that they're out there really pushing the free ones, and now they've made it mandatory by law in the New York area.
Well, they canceled on that. They canceled on that. A federal judge came in on that one.
Oh, did he?
You still have, you have rights, and mother should dictate how her child is exposed to these kinds of creepy things. I remember when I was 4 years old, I was going to China, and I had to do 6 days of plague shots, and it traumatized me. And when I say traumatized me, I mean, by the third day, a full-grown sailor was flat on his back with black plague or yellow fever. And that was in 1948. Yeah, it was terrible. And you want to go to Ghana or some places in Africa, look at the creepy things that you have to get immunization for. I mean, really.
Well, and I had the measles when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't even want to tell you what me and my brother
did. Your mother went out and found somebody that had measles, and you got exposed to it because you could handle it much easier than you might as an adult, or it might kill you.
Well,
and what it did is
I remember something about having to wear sunglasses. They kept saying we had to keep our sunglasses on because we had the measles and it would damage our eyes. And my mother was going to the grocery store, and she made us promise not to take our sunglasses off. Well, my brother was an instigator. And as soon as my mother left, we lived right down the road from the lake. He goes, come on, let's go down to the lake and see what's happening. And I said, we can't go out. We got the measles. He goes, it's all right as long as we keep our sunglasses on. So we go down to the lake, and here's all these carp are in the bay just spawning away. And my brother looks at me, he goes, they think we're in school. So he goes, let's go home, get the wheelbarrow and the spear. So here we are, we jump in the lake, we're spearing these fish. He's throwing them in the wheelbarrow. I'm running them home and dumping them in a pile. And when my mom came home, we had this 5-foot around pile of carp, about 4 feet high. And she's going, oh my God, you're going to die. And my dad's going, don't yell at him. Look at all this fish we got that we can bury under the bushes.
I didn't work with it. Yeah, what doesn't kill you makes
here we
you
are,
stronger.
we're in the lake with the measles. It didn't kill us. It didn't kill us.
No. As a child, that's why you get exposed, because you build up your own immune system. That's what antibodies are about. And that's what a flu shot is. Usually, they're giving you a small dose of the crud. The problem is viruses mutate so quickly. When it starts as an H1N1, by the time you're finished, it might be an H3 and 7 or something creepy. It changes constantly. To get an immune system shot, general, for flu, is kind of like pissing up wind. Why bother?
Our immune systems in our children nowadays are just shot. And do you think it,
Right.
I mean, don't you think it has to do with, look at the food. I mean, we aren't getting the nutrients out of the food that we used to get back then.
Well, our diets are wrong. I remember when they're advertising Dorito corn chips, and he said, "Don't worry, we'll make more." And the rest of the world then became obese. It's a terrible thing what's happening in terms of diet and education. And, the one follows the other. They're like hand in hand, education. And I wished, it's just a shame. There's a movie called Cloud Atlas where it demonstrates the concept of mentorship. That's what we're seeking now. That kind of relationship where the child is allowed to grow as quickly as it wants to or not, and the adult is there not to teach the child, but to help the child by facilitating the tools that it doesn't have, shovel, whatever.
Well, even the fish have changed. I remember I used to go fishing with my dad all the time, and all the fish were so healthy looking. And when I used to fish out here in the St. Clair River, and this was, I don't know, this is quite a ways back, I'd say 20 years ago, I was out there, I pulled a walleye out of the river that it looked like someone poured battery acid on its head. And after I caught that fish, I said, that's it, I ain't eating no more fish out of this river.
There are places in America that are like the way it used to be. You go up to Lake Pend Oreille, and the bass fishing up there is incredible. But with the kinds of things that are happening now with our weather and the storms that are causing the fires. When I was up on North Vancouver Island last summer, the satellite that my bunker has access to had infrared, and you could see 2 lava strikes in the Northern Territories up above BC. The plate's moving. And I don't know how bad it's going to be. I don't know when it's going to happen. But there's the lava strikes. There was another one we saw down in the Trinities, down near Palm. And I don't know what it means. I think we're about to have an event.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the volcanoes are becoming more active.
Popo is a marker. When Popo goes like it just did, that means we've got an event brewing. I just talked with someone from Ecuador today, and I don't know how bad it's going to play. I know that I have friends that are living in Hawaii on the Big Island, and down there in the volcano, and that place, and they're moving back home.
I don't blame them.
Well,
I don't blame them.
Kilauea, who knows?
I mean, there's too much, especially with the last activity in the volcano. And then I hear that they're having quite a bit of earthquakes over there on the Big Island. What do your friends say about that?
Well, then there it is. That's part of the solar minimum and what's going on with the sun right now. It's affecting everything. And if we lose our magnetic field, with a pole shift, that's how Mars lost its atmosphere.
So explain to us what absolutely will happen to the planet.
I'm sorry?
Explain to us if we lose the magnetic field, what will start happening?
The magnetic field is lessening. It's decreasing. We used to say 5% every 100 years. Now it's 5% every 10 years. It's like that's an order of magnitude faster. And at some point, the magnetic field will not be strong enough to contain or hold the atmosphere. And really, if you think you got a problem with water, it's 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. What's important?
Water.
Yeah, unless you don't have any air to breathe, in which case you got 3 minutes for that. And so with a magnetic field shift, there's a likelihood we're going to lose our atmosphere. That's what they have now theorized. Did you know that the planet Mars right now, literally as a smaller planet, has more water on it than Earth does?
Well, we did have a 6.1 yesterday in Taiwan.
Yeah, we're having events all along the Pacific Rim now. Yeah, that's correct. That's when Popo went off, etc. Yes, we're going to have a problem. Again, the first two things that will kill you are exhaustion and dehydration. You must have your water together. If you have your water together, you have already begun the process of survival. That's the primary one that collapses first.
Okay, let's talk about CERN for a few minutes here. Do you think that the CERN, the Hadron Collider? Okay, do you think that the fact that they've got that puppy running is, do you think that it's tearing the veil?
That is a speculative thing. What they're essentially doing is creating a black hole. The purpose was to create a rapid transit system between Geneva and Fermi Labs in Chicago. Teleportation. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of how that affects the atmosphere. This is a new area field, and they're going to create a mini black hole, and you have to question what's on the other side.
Yeah, that's my worry is they're opening a porthole or a door to something that they're going to let in that we don't want here,
or let out, or let through, or let aside, or who knows what it all means at this moment. I haven't been at the other side of a black hole, so I don't know what's on the other side. I'm going to presume. I think that what was that movie Interstellar? Interstellar was considered technically one of the most accurate sci-fi movies made. And when I say that, where he comes back and he's trying to communicate to his daughter by punching out in his library books so that it was a message or communication. And that accuracy of how it's going to possibly play was very interesting. That's what science fiction does. It creates your mind's eye to make something real. We did not have a 3D printer until we saw a replicator in sci-fi on Hollywood. That's what Hollywood's primary purpose is, prepping the public for seeing the next stages in technology, how it's going to work.
Well, I'm just wondering if it has anything to do with contributing to the shift of our planet. But the way you're explaining it.
Um, I don't know. We've been here before. There's historical evidence in the ice, of pole shifts previous and what it did to civilizations. In the Clovis down near Popo, um, that later crawled out of a cave and became the Navajo and the Hopi. That if they're not validating, they had spaceflight. We've been here before. The Vermont, other historical references that would suggest that even with our high technology, events change everything.
Don't you feel, Dr. Rich, that we are like in the beginning of our pole shift now with the sinkholes, the extreme weather? I mean, when they had that last storm come across Nebraska, 12 semi trucks blew over on their side. They said the winds were hurricane force winds. I mean, this isn't a normal storm. Don't you think that the effects on our planet right now are like the beginning of a shift?
Probably, yes. I don't know that, but that's what I sense. Yes.
Yeah.
But with that, man will survive. And what we have now is not something to fear as much as to possibly embrace as an opportunity. It's certainly going to change things.
All right, that's what I say. Be aware of what's going on. Like 90% of the people that don't know anything about a pole shift or what's happening to our planet, then they're experiencing these floods and these high storms. They're like, oh, what the heck's going on? I mean, educate yourself. Find out what's going on and be prepared. That way you can have emergency food, emergency water, learn things about purifying the water yourself. These are the things that I think people should educate themselves on.
Well, empowering.
What are your thoughts?
If you do that, if you begin with your children, well, now it's part of your culture rather than, can you imagine what it's going to be like in New York City? Fifth day with no water? Just in sanitation, going to the toilet.
I think disease is going to go rapid in New York City, is what I think.
Well, then what your zombie is in East L.A. when they're out of food. And there will be blood in that regard, because you can see how people behave in a disaster. I was in Kailua the day after Fukushima, and the stores were rifled empty. It's like panic, so they just go through and start building up their food base and things like that, when in fact what's most important is water.
Okay, so when we were talking about the 5G satellites, 20,000 5G satellites were launched to put dangerous microwave radiation across the world. If we have a grid down situation, will those satellites be of harm to us still?
Grid down situation. What that is your grid, and that's called the Earth fence, and that's a Lockheed thing that will make the Earth look like a pincushion. Or what is that? Hellblazer. A pin sticking in every single pore in his skull. The University of Pennsylvania has actually banned certain parts of the woods because there's no GPS. I go to the woods to get away from that kind of thing, and the laws now are starting to enforce that when they're in their absence, you're handicapped and you're not, it's prohibited. I'm concerned. I don't have answers in that regard, but I know that the 5G is toxic. Absolutely. It has no symmetry. Absolutely.
Do you think we have a snowball's chance, and you know what, to try to stop them from doing this to us, or it's just going to be forced on us?
One home at a time, one smart meter at a time, opting out, yeah, probably. And I think at some point it will be outlawed. And then what they'll do is they'll charge you to take it off your meter. They charge you to put it on, and they'll charge you to. The whole thing is about money.
They forced it on me. They told me they were going to take my power, and they said you can go in the opt-out program for $10 a month, and we won't turn it on, which I don't believe them. And it just aggravates the crap out of me that I got to pay you $10 a month for you not to harm me.
This is encroachment, like taxation without representation. It is for them to have easier convenience of not having to set a meter reader up your driveway to take a reading off your meter. The problem is the systems are unstable, and because of that, there is a high likelihood that Paradise is just the beginning of a unstable situation where they set them off. That fire is so hot as to slag glass, house burns to the ground in minutes, and yet the trees around the house are relatively untouched. I'm going to guess there are over 1,000 people that are still missing are probably going to be discovered in the ash. It burnt so quickly, there was no warning.
Yeah, that's what I heard. You know, that they're fudging the numbers on how many people did lose their lives in Paradise. I also heard one guy that did an interview, and he said that he was off the grid, did not have a smart meter, and they labeled him as a threat.
Well, if you want to take this scenario out to the weirdest level, basically they have not allowed the people back in to rebuild, and there's a high likelihood they're going to give that part of California to China for the national debt. That's also a probability.
So it's the old devastate, run you off your land, and land grab thing, like they did with the old railroad.
Yeah, well, then there it is. And I don't know that, but, you know, that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
My heart goes out to everybody out there. That is just so sad. Well, here's another question. Now let's get back to these 5G satellites that are going to pincushion our planet. Don't you think that when they're blasting us with microwave radiation from a satellite, isn't that going to affect our ozone layer? I mean, hello.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Don't you think that these microwave satellites that are going to pincushion our planet with 5G, isn't that going to affect our ozone layer?
Oh, yes, certainly. It's absolutely going to affect everything.
Which, you know, when they start depleting our ozone layer, then we're going to start having more massive storms from the solar sun flares, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to need to take a brief break. Can I take a break and go to the bathroom or something?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just sit here and I'll look at some stuff on Facebook and keep everybody entertained.
Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. All right, you guys, we'll just give Dr. Rick a break here real quick, and I'm going to go over a couple of the things that I have been looking at and posting on my page. Let's see, we've got the earthquake that hit Taiwan, and also earth cracks open, creating a massive sinkhole. This happened in United Arab on the 15th of April. So, you know, our planet is being effective. like I was telling Dr. Rick, I think that we are in the process of the pole shift happening at this present time. I don't know if you guys know about the earthquake that hit Taiwan, and those people are, I mean, I'm looking at videos where things are just shaking off their walls. Just the massive floods that are going through Iran. Our East Coast, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, is being
Hi, I'm
just
back.
bombarded with tornadoes. And then the other thing to ask you about, Dr. Rick, are these strange roll clouds. Are you familiar with those that are hanging real low to the ground and they look like a big...
I haven't seen them. I haven't seen normal clouds in a long time. We had some billowy clouds here a couple of days ago, and it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. And then they started spraying again. And the weird part was the sky was clear blue, and yet when the sun sank, it created a white shaft going straight up because the particulate was so fine, it was reflecting the sunset even though you couldn't see it in the blue sky. It's there, and it's in, like you said, nanoparticles. And my guess is that's why all the trees are having kill right now, because this nanoparticle gets into the soil and it inhibits the capillary action of getting into the trees in the topper part of the tree. And that's why the trees are now starting to show extreme stress. They say it's because of drought, the bark beetle. They have all kinds of excuses, but I have never seen the sun in a blue sky set with a shaft of light going straight up where it's going because it's reflecting off of nanoparticles. Why are they doing it? Well, originally it was about weather control for airports like San Francisco. But what is it being used for today? And who's funding that? And for what purpose? And with the aberrant weather variation that we're now seeing in everything, certainly part of this is influenced because of that. I don't know what it means. Here we are.
Well, you haven't seen the roll cloud, so I ran over, I had a picture of one on my Facebook. I posted it on your Facebook page so you could take a look at it, because this one here is very bizarre, and I've been seeing a lot of these. People are videoing these everywhere, so it's like, wow, I've never seen a cloud. You know, the thing that I noticed is on the weather, the Weather Channel, they're coming up with all these new names for these clouds.
Yeah,
new names,
and imagine
storms.
Yeah. I can also tell you that there are other things that they will do, not the so-called chemtrail chemistries. I remember when Navy deployed an experiment up in Reedsport with lithium just to see if they could lock down a small city. Everybody was sick. It's you don't know what they're doing, and you don't know why they're doing it. How's that? How's that play? Because you can obviously see it's affecting everything. Attitudes, unknown. People are uncertain what it means. I don't have.
You know, they don't know what they're doing. You know, they're putting wireless technology in the schools and radiating the children's heads before their brains can even develop.
Well, it's the education, for the dumbing down of America. Why? Why would they do that? I remember when I was in grade school, we were not number one in the world. There were school systems in Europe that supported better education for children. But today, I don't understand it. And I don't understand why there isn't the demand for more, monitoring of the quality of our education in children. Cursive. The importance of cursive is teaching the brain how to move from right to left brain. Cursive having to take letters and make them into words as a script or cursive requires transfer of information from one. It's a skill set thing that they are now eliminating.
Yeah.
So I'm preaching to the choir. I have friends that are in education, and when they were retired, their goal was to go into education reform. But today, when they thought about it, they no longer are interested because they don't even want to deal with the system anymore. And it's our children that suffer.
Well, and just like history, I mean, they quit. They took all the history books out. Then now they're taking all the statues down, saying, "Oh, the Civil War was a bad thing." Well, how is anyone going to know whether it was a bad thing or not?
All of these things are semi-results of politics, of course. In fact, the problem that I'm seeing in the confusion of a child and just gender is appalling. A child at first doesn't think whether it's a girl or a boy, and yet now there are like 32 different choices. All that's doing is confusing the child. Yep. I don't have answers. I wished that my friends that are education and have background on that would be more actively involved and start voicing opinion on some of this stuff. The county I live in right now only has a 73% graduation. And anybody that gets any kind of education, they don't want to come back home. There's no job offers that would support their advanced education. And so the community stagnates. And as such, you get all the rest of it that goes in it with crime and the rest of it. I don't have answers. I just wished that our children were considered our single most important natural resource. That is our future, not timber.
Well, like I said, they're destroying our planet. They're destroying race.
It's a question of choices. And I don't have the answers in that area. I'm just kind of like a Spock. And I know things, but that doesn't mean I know what we should do. And I don't have that answer. I don't. I know that for me, I get a lot of pleasure in writing a comic book around technical information like structured water so a child can envision it in her mind or his mind's eye, because that's where the real magic occurs. Being able to understand how something works in your mind's eye, that's where it works, not the physics. The physics changes. The mind's eye is where, and the child, are rich in that area.
Well, I think most of it comes from that we're losing our freedoms. I mean, we have no freedom to even speak out about what we don't think is right or what we think's wrong in this country. If you do, you're labeled some kind of a threat.
I'm speaking out. Alternative radio. I'm trying to do my footstep by leaving a footprint, hoping that what I've done, someone listening to me picks it up and goes the next step with it. Children are the bottom line, and right now I would think homeschooling is, public school. I'm grateful that I went through public school. I was, a special ed, not like my friends do, but I was gifted, and yet I was treated as if I was retarded. Then they wanted to put me on drugs like lithium. And then when they couldn't handle it anymore, they wanted to advance me to school. And my mother wouldn't let them do it. And I am so grateful because today I'm more normal. I would have been a kind of an idiot savant that couldn't talk. I can, just because I went through public school. Now, public school is changing. there's a lot of weirdness in it, like bullying and clicks, social grouping, with texting and these new technologies and things that, what they're doing is it's teaching the child not to have as much personal interaction. Texting is very impersonal and can be a type of what's the thing when you mask yourself, you fake yourself, you create an image. Well, no, I'm a male, but I'm gonna pretend like I'm a what is it? A facade, an image that they think I'm one thing, and in fact I'm another, also known as a troll.
Oh yeah, well, I have those.
There's the amount of communication that occurs when you do something in person is so much more than texting. Texting is a quick emoji, like a little image of it's an abbreviation, and it is not true communication. And that's what saints in history called darshan, eyeball to eyeball. Something more is transferred when you do something in person with someone. And a quality of it, a level of communication, a part of the soul is in dialogue. Now, I can't give you the hand waving. I talk about structured water and pheromone bullshit, but there's something more that goes on than just texting on. I hate Facebook. I use Facebook as my study program. I want to queue up each day and be knowledgeable so that I can approach and do radio on any given moment spontaneously, and I'm aware of what's going on. I use Facebook to look what I discovered, and I'll post the thing on, Notre Dame, whatever. But the dialogue of getting close to a relative using Facebook, that's crazy. And I know for a fact that there's all kinds of creepy that are observing me and trying to profile me so they can sell me more paint or whatever.
Yeah.
I was on radio this morning doing about new cars. And I don't understand Detroit, the concept of having, like we have a new car lot here in Grants Pass, and it'll have, I don't know, maybe 300 brand new automobiles. They're not going to sell all of those things in Grants Pass. What happens to them? Well, there are parking lots of brand new automobiles that will never be sold. Why did they build them? To keep the marketplace strong, people in jobs, and the price stable. Our economy and our concept of how we live and why we live needs serious revision. I don't have the answer, but I can tell you that's not it. We were talking about automobiles that have logic in it. Like when something's wrong with the car, it will go through a loop of some kind where it slows everything down for the driver. There's less emphasis on the driver knowing what it's doing than ever before. And, sensors that will cause you to slow down because you're coming up too fast on a car if you're not paying attention. The problem is, hit the brakes. The problem is what happens if you're in Montana and it's icy. The amount of technology that is being given is got a downside to it. Things break more. I remember when my buddy got his Cadillac And we went to a rock festival, and everybody's getting rained on, and he hits his power windows, and they go up, and we stay nice and dry. And I also remember it was his power window that broke. The more we use those technologies for convenience, we lose something in its exchange. And I don't have the answer, but I would think moving toward a more simple way of living is always preferred. To simplify your life, make it simpler, not more complex. And candidly, it's quite the opposite with teenagers and texting and Game Boys. And I don't know.
It's interesting that you brought up the technology, because I just saw a documentary where they were showing how easily the Alexa, people that had a whole system set up with Alexa on their home to turn the heat on, to turn the air on, to lock the front door, to turn the lights on and off. And they had a team of hackers in a van outside their house, and they showed them how easy they can hack their house. And these people, it just shows you how stupid people are. They're standing there talking to this woman, and all of a sudden their lights go on and off, and they go, "Oh, wow," and they kind of giggle. And then they go, "Oh, wow, it's getting hot in here," because they'd hacked into their Alexa, and they turned the heat up. And then all of a sudden you heard the front door go, zzz. This guy walks right in. He goes, "I just unlocked your front door and walked in." And they go, "Well, we'll have to change that," like,
I'll tell you what, my girlfriend said something very interesting the other day. She said, putting an ADTP security window, a badge on your window, is that going to deter or entice? She said, putting it on there says that there's things inside to steal.
Right.
It was an interesting argument.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you see? I would prefer to live a more simple life. I don't necessarily think we have to go backward in technology, but I think that there's wood heat, for example, is drier and healthier. From that point of view, I love dry heat, but it's also a lot of work. And I lived in the Okanagan's where you had to knock down, 20 cord to heat your home that year. It could be very. What's that?
I heat with wood.
So, do you cook with wood?
No. Well, I do use my wood burner. When I'm heating, I will put something in a pan and put it on the wood burner to heat it up. But if I've got to bake something, or I do that in the kitchen. But in the wintertime when I'm running my wood burner, I do use it a lot to heat up coffee and stuff like that. Yeah, I use it to save on
I
my
remember
propane.
when I lived on the beaches, and I baked with a little oven that I made using wood heat, and I had to battle my territorial thing with a skunk.
Mm-hmm.
The skunk wanted to have the heat too, and the only way I could get rid of that skunk was by smoking him out. I plugged the chimney, made it uninhabitable, the skunk left, and then I was able to rehabit my little thing on the beaches. That's a long time ago, and it taught me some interesting lessons about what you find on the beaches are like gifts that you can use for a lifestyle. The tides, that's what we used to do, is go tide surfing. We'd go looking for things and what came in on the tide.
Now, I remember as a child, my grandmother had a stove down in her basement. It was an old porcelain stove, and it had one side where you put the wood in it. I bet you that stove would be worth some bucks now.
The idea of, like, right where I live now, I have a heat pump. The heat pump air exchanger works pretty good. It's expensive, but having the dry wood heat during the really cold puts a nice cherry heat in the basement, and it radiates out, and there's something different about that kind of life and the feeling of the heat. It's different.
Yep.
Trying to integrate, the best technologies into a lifestyle. Heat pumps are only good. We used to do what are called swamp coolers, where if you use water as a sink, and the water vapor is what cools or drops the temperature. Just a heat pump. They're cheap, whereas an air conditioner has to use Freon and all kinds of expensive chemistries and things that can go wrong. I just I wished I had a more simple way of living, and the kids today want it to go fast and simple, fast, like texting on the fly. I have hung in my hall here my old slide rules. I at the 3 places. Woo! Whereas a little calculator. No, just boom, 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 boom. But you look at a child, and today that child doesn't know how to drive a nail into wood. And it's getting so bad. They've dropped wood shop. They've dropped drafting. They've dropped nursing, cooking. I remember they had cooking in school. They had all these different skill sets, and they're no longer teaching them. Why?
That's beyond me. I used to love to go to shop and to home economics and all that. I didn't know that they dropped all that.
Oh, the schools no longer have wood shop. They no longer do drafting. Certainly they don't have home economics. We're cooking, learning how to cook. Nope. It's a strange new world out there, and I don't have the answers. But I will start talking about it like now, hoping to light a bonfire and under somebody so that they start asking questions. And at some point, we make changes back toward what makes reasonable sense in our home.
Well, I guess the only way our children are going to be educated is if the parent takes it upon themselves to, teach them old school ways. Otherwise,
well, and some parents are. Homeschooling is really big now in California.
Right.
But public schools are important for teaching socialization and how to get along with someone else that's different than you are. So there's pluses and minuses, and I don't have the answer on that.
Well, I don't know either. It's heartbreaking if you ask me. It really is. I'm at a loss for words on that one. But we gotta ring the bell, I guess, and get out there and tell people, wake up, America. These are the children are our future.
Exercise is important. Learning how to play, recreation, because you can't stay on point too long, and you get burnt out. And I'm Exhibit A. I'm needing a break. Somewhere, just a change of environment. Going to the beaches where the white noise makes you bored for a moment. That's healthy. It really is. And spending a more quiet time, being quiet rather than talking on the phone, working on a computer. And I'm too old probably to make serious changes in myself like I'd like. But I remember a time where if I didn't get out of Dodge once a week, in the weekends, I was history. At some point, I get crabby. Yeah, now, they imagine a whole city of crabby people. Oh, we have that. It's called, driving into town, road rage. It's getting really bad.
I know.
I've never seen anything like it now.
I know.
Everybody's on edge. Yeah.
I came home from shopping last time, and my adopted daughter here, I said, oh, by the way, your dad's crabby. She goes, I knew it when he walked past me. She goes, I smell crabbiness in the air.
Yeah.
I laughed.
Well,
I have to
laughter.
My little brother wrote in the chat room here. I took home economics and choir in high school because that's where the girls were.
Oh yeah, the sex thing that they do in high school. That has changed also. You ought to see the basketball teams here now, man. The women are big Amazons, and they know how to break. Oh yeah. But
are you sure those are women?
it's still, yeah, it's still a shame what's happening with our young children, the really young. And I don't have the answer on that. But I am a legacy with Waldorf. I do mentor, and I try to work with children, and that's what I did. I did a comic book as an experiment. I can write books for adults. What would it be like to try to do something for a child where I do a storybook form where I'm a real live superhero? Oh, wait. There's 3 movies out that are on that, like right now, with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis. It's called Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. And in Glass, there are 3 of these characters in an insane asylum that think they're superheroes. And guess what? Yeah, because it's in the mind's eye. You teach that to a child, oh my God, watch what that child can actually do. It's unbelievable.
Well, no wonder I'm so brave. I always thought I was Superwoman.
Yeah. I love it when I slide into Comic-Con with my 280Z and I step out with my robes, and the kids love it because they're seeking a live action hero, not an imaginary individual, but something they could become when they grow up. And let me tell you, I am the real Dr. Strange. Creepy I am. I love it. And
okay, I want to address some of the meteors that have been seen. We're having a plethora of them. Bright green meteor fireball.
Lineage, yeah. We have the lineage. Okay, that's annual. We have that each year. There's certain things we look forward to. Can you imagine how much debris is in space? I mean, it's creepy. And the Earth, I saw a picture, an artist's rendition of the Earth and all the debris just from spaceflight. And it's toxic over there, man. I mean, when India shot down that satellite, they put ISIS in danger. And now ISIS has got its own problems. It's got an outbreak of bacteria and it's growing in space. It's taking over the station. Not kidding. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what it all means or where it's all going, but we have a situation.
So if we're going to be food shortage and water and all the things that are going on, people are being flooded out, people are being burned out, people are being, tornadoes are ripping their houses apart. How, I mean, it's only a matter of time that disease is going to start to spread.
Well, pandemics, that's the primary. Okay, pandemic, a grid down, an event like an earthquake, all these different natural disasters are all potential. And they are going to happen. They've happened before, and we've got signs they're about to happen again. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Each has its other side that allows change to occur, which is the rule. And for example, not so much a pandemic, but an earthquake or grid down is going to take out the infrastructure, and we can maybe, reinstall something with a little more sense to it.
Well, wouldn't it make sense to try to build our immune system right now before, how do we approach building our immune system?
Yeah. today, the physics or chemistry of nutrition has reached an all-time high and low. We have chemistry that will repair telomerase, the fraying of our DNA that causes aging. Now, Ward Dean, Surgeon General for the Marine Corps, has written a book called Biological Aging Mechanisms, Clinical Approach. And what he does is he goes all over the world, different universities, and how each one uniquely measures the aging process. And at the end of his book, his conclusion is that every single one of them is reversible. And that means you don't have to, you can live forever. No. What age do you want to go back to?
Oh, I'll go back to
my girlfriend is in her, my girlfriend's in her 50s, and she just got carded. Yeah, that's dark. No, we're not going to go there. But the metaphor is, with the right attitude and livelihood, exercise, and dietary choices, you can have. You don't have to be bald like me. My pulled that it didn't fall. Yeah, it's awful. Yeah, but like her hair was beautiful. She decided to let it grow longer. The longer it grew, the younger she looked. And get it down long enough. Can I see your ID, please? She laughed. It made her really good. It made her laugh because it's a validation that when you take care of yourself, you can have a better quality of life. That would be what we're seeking, quality of life. What age do you want to be? For me, I like being grumpy. So I'm, got scars on my knuckle where I drag them, and I like to, bitch and groan and make lots of noises. But I like to laugh, and that is what makes me young. It is an extremely important tool for balancing the bullshit out there. And the earth has got a lot of that, man. You got to laugh your way through this because it's not going to be an easy walk.
It all really has to do with your mindset. What frame of mind do you want to be in?
Yeah. Glass half full, glass half empty. Which way do you want to play it? Whiny, or, there it is. And John Lennon, you got to love John Lennon. He said, everything works out in the end. If things aren't working out, it's not yet the end. The Beatles. I love them. It's, yeah, they're...
well, yeah, I love the one song, All You Need Is Love, because that's true.
Yeah. I like Tina Turner better, what's love got to do with it? But, okay. Well, for every tit, there's a tat, and humbug. Choices. And I like that limberness. I like that place because that's where youth is found.
Well,
ageless. I always wanted to be a Will Rogers, a little view from the country with a little bit of snide side humor. Oh, Siska, Pancho, nuts. And with that comes the reality that this isn't Kansas anymore, Toto.
Exactly. I love that. I used to use that at work all the time. I used to say, Annie M, get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
There's no
I'm
place
like
home.
My toes and my little pretty, and I'm going to get your dog, too. Bark. Yeah. Oh, I'm melting.
I had this supervisor. She was so mean to everybody. She kept vodka in the drawer, and then someone said someone should report her that she's drinking. I said, no, don't take her vodka away. She'd probably kill us. But really? She used to have a curly perm, and she'd pick it all out. And
Yeah,
one
in
day
the
I was looking
tarot,
at
we
her.
would say that she's into her cups. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But,
One
yeah,
day I was
right.
looking at her and I go, man, that hair almost looks like snakes. So I told this guy on the line, I go, see that woman down there? He goes, yeah. I go, whatever you do, don't look at her. He goes, why? I go, don't look, don't look. I go, that's Medusa. You'll turn to stone.
Yeah, the right one don't get you. You can count on the left one.
But, I used to have fun at work, and that's why they liked me there. Everybody else used to say, oh, you're not, this is work, you're not supposed to have fun. But everybody that worked with me did triple production. So what's that tell you?
So, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. I don't feel I was being used as Mr. Wizard today. This was a different kind of philosophy rather than me talking physics and, Mr. Ed. Well, there it is, a talking horse. I think that we have an opportunity ahead of us, and I think that everybody needs to realize that things are going to change shortly. How and when and what, I can't answer that. But I can tell you, you can count on it because I can smell it in the weather. I can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do me a favor, when you do your interview with Robert, tell him I send my love and I miss
promise.
him.
Mad Painter is someone I've known a long time, and I'll try to patch that up for you because you're cool and he's very cool. And you two shouldn't.
Well,
Yeah.
I love him. I love him dearly. And I just think he needed his space, so I gave him his space.
We
I
all
sent him
need that.
emails.
Yeah, comes with the territory. Is he in North Carolina? Where is he located now?
I think he's in Arizona. I really don't know.
That's right. Now I remember. Yes. Did you know that Robin Falkhoff died?
No.
You know her? Yeah, she's someone I really like. And Matt Stein, my partner, died. We thought he was going to be last man standing. He eats weird bran and climbed mountains and smelled bad because he's, all healthy and wiry and all that. And he had an aortic aneurysm. Boom. Matt was my friend. And we did the sustainable lifeboats together. And I have on my website a video that we made just before he died. We did it in Reno. It was mostly military. So the questions are excellent, answering the questions. It was on sustainable lifeboats. It's 2 days, 8 hours, and on Vimeo. And Matt and I did it right so that we left a footprint for people that want to start thinking about what you need to do to change in your household now that would give you an edge. Should the grid collapse, volcano go off, or zombie hordes appeared. It's how to live off the grid for 30 days.
Well, I did it for 2 weeks, and that wasn't fun. But I was alone.
Chop wood, carry water. There it is, man. Just like in the psychology books. It is a mental state that gives you empowerment and a kind of sovereignty that I deem very important. It's very important. Yep. It's part of health.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rick, for coming out tonight. I'm so glad you enjoyed having the conversation with me. It's always
my
a pleasure.
Mom. Yeah.
It's always
Thank you
a pleasure having you here. You're such fun to talk to.
Thank you. You giggle and laugh at the right moments for my jokes, so I feel good too.
and
nice
tell
talking.
your lady that's sitting there, I know she's sitting there listening to us, tell her I said, you go, girl, with that carton.
Oh, she's very cool. I am very blessed. Even though
You guys ever get over here to Michigan, you have to come visit me.
Well, I have my Russell, my tech support, just went to Hawaii on his 50th wedding anniversary. And he's all excited because he's going to watch a bunch of naked women and men doing luau dancing with sticks. He deserves that. He deserves that. Never been to Hawaii. Married 50 years. And she deserves a merit badge. Yeah, he's Navy. So there he goes. Nice talking to you, Mom.
Okay, we will. I'm going to be going off the air for a couple months. I have a lot of things I have to deal with here at the house, but once I get back rolling again, and I will be back out here, I'll get in touch with you, and we'll have you back ASAP.
I'd like that. Yeah, I like that. I think your handle, Bad Baby, is it's wonderful. The vision I have is something out of Roger Rabbit where you're smoking a cigar.
Well, I like those little cherry Swisher sweets.
There it is. What you need are pimp sticks, big, long, thin cigars. There it is.
Oh, I love you. I love you both. I send my love to everybody. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will be talking to you soon, Dr. Rick.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And that was Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Well, it's a delight to have him every time I have him. He makes me laugh. And on that note, I want to explain that I will be going off the air for a few months. Possibly, if I'm not real busy, I might jump out here and post a show here and there. You'll have to come into my window and check and see if I got anything posted. But I have to do this. It's important. And don't forget about me. I will be coming back. I do have one more show scheduled, and that is with Dave Dobbs and Jeff P. next Friday. And then after that, when Samuel Hoffman does get his phone put in, I did check today, and the guy was supposed to come out. He stood him up. Still no phone. When Samuel does get his phone in, I will schedule him somewhere in May and have him come back. Possibly I might have Dave Dobbs and Jeff P. come back in May. I'm not sure. But, you know, like I said, there'll be an occasional show here and there. Just don't look for me to be here every Friday for a few months, you guys. Keep me in your prayers. I have some health issues that I'm dealing with, and this is why I won't be out here. But eventually I will be back full-time, probably after the summer. And on that note, I hope you all have a wonderful Easter, a blessed weekend, a blessed week, and we will see you next week. And remember, Bad Baby loves you.